6:03 a.m. I'm on my dock, coffee in one hand, fishing rod in the other, watching sunrise over the $340,000 Old Mill Lake property I bought cash yesterday. Deed in my pocket, title insurance already in my inbox, tires on gravel, two police cruisers roll up, red-blue lights painting my water, officers step out, hands near holsters. "Sir, HOA president called 911. You're trespassing. This lake isn't yours." Princess Dolores actually weaponized the police because I dared fish on my property. She's ruled this place for 30 years with $500 fake fines, 2 a.m. boat tows, and her husband's county connections. What she never saw coming? A 1952 deed clause just handed me sole legal control of the only road every lakefront mansion uses. $147 certified notice taped to her gate at 4 p.m. 47 multi-million-dollar homes lost lake access forever. Their boats are landlocked, their docks are useless. Drop your craziest HOA nightmare plus your city below. This same scam is running in your neighborhood right now. My name's Garrett, and for 15 years I busted my ass as a machinist, saving every overtime dollar for this moment. My late wife Sarah and I used to drive past Old Mill Lake every Sunday after church, dreaming about retiring to that crystal clear water. Cancer took her last spring, but she made me promise to buy our lake house anyway. Don't you dare spend your life in that empty apartment, Garrett Mitchell. So when Widow Henderson put her 2.3-acre lakefront plot up for sale, I didn't hesitate. 400 feet of natural shoreline, rustic 1987 cabin, solid dock. The smell of pine needles and morning mist during my walkthrough felt like Sarah whispering approval. The wooden dock creaked under my boots, music to my ears after years of factory floors. Clean title, no liens, standard county zoning. I wrote a $340,000 cash check and got keys same day. Enter Princess Dolores, day 2, 9 a.m. sharp. White Lexus SUV purrs up my gravel drive like a predator. Out steps this woman, designer athleisure, silver hair, helmet perfect, face that's never seen honest work. Her floral perfume cloud hits me from 10 feet away, so thick I could taste it. "Welcome to Lakeside Estates," she announces, scanning my work boots and Carhartt jacket like I'm contaminated. "I'm Dolores Whitmore, HOA president. We need to discuss your suitability for this community." "Suitability? Lady, my money cleared just fine." She rattles off standards like scripture. No boats before 7 a.m., no fishing during 8-month nesting season, no guests without 48-hour HOA approval, no parking work vehicles in driveways, clearly aimed at my pickup. "The previous owner understood her place," Dolores says, nose wrinkled like my truck's leaking sewage. "She rarely used the waterfront. Very appropriate for someone of her background." Translation: know your class, blue-collar boy. Here's the setup. 12 mansions belong to her HOA kingdom. 3 properties don't. Mine, Hermit Ezra's shack, and 1 vacant lot. Dolores controls the boat launch, fishing pier, even the swimming beach. She's turned this lake into her private country club, and working class folks ain't welcome. Day 3, sunrise fishing from my dock. The water laps against pilings with that gentle slurp-slurp sound that used to calm Sarah during chemo treatments. Birds calling across the glass-smooth surface. Then, click, 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 designer heels attacking my dock planks like machine gun fire. "You're disturbing protected waterfowl," Dolores shrieks, actually pointing her manicured finger at my Walmart fishing rod. I turn slow. "Ma'am, this is my property." "This isn't some trailer park, sir." The way she spits "sir" like it's profanity. "People like you don't understand what property values mean. People like me." There it was. That afternoon, certified letter demanding I cease commercial fishing activities or face $500 daily fines. Commercial? I'm catching bluegill with corn kernels. Day 4 brings the escalation. Anonymous tip to county code enforcement about my unpermitted structures, meaning the perfectly legal dock that's been here since 1987. Suddenly, I need $2,000 worth of inspections for a dock that was grandfathered in decades ago. The pattern becomes clear. 12 HOA properties received courtesy notifications about new dock regulations. 3 non-HOA properties got surprise violation notices. Day 5, Dolores shows up with 2 HOA board members, both soft-handed country club types eyeing my property like vultures. "We're prepared to make a generous offer," she announces. $280,000 cash, quick closing. Save you the hassle of dealing with all these compliance issues. $60,000 less than I paid 5 days ago. The smell of their cologne mixing with lake air made my stomach turn. "Not interested," I said. Her smile vanished. "Mr. Mitchell, I don't think you understand how things work here. This community has certain expectations, standards. We've worked very hard to maintain our property values and our way of life. And what way is that? The right way, ice-cold stare. The appropriate way for people who belong. After they left, I sat on my dock watching the sunset paint the water gold and orange. Sarah would have laughed at these snobs. She'd have told me to fight back, show them what a real man looks like. Princess Dolores thought she could intimidate some dumb factory worker into selling cheap and running away. She had no idea what kind of fight she just started. Let me score this segment honestly. Day 6, I wake up to discover my boat launch access road blocked. 3 decorative boulders the size of washing machines, positioned perfectly to stop any trailer from reaching the water. A cheerful yellow sign reads, Temporary Landscaping Project, Lakeside Improvement Committee. Improvement my ass. I walk around those rocks, boots crunching on fresh gravel they'd spread to make it look official. The smell of diesel fuel still hangs in the air. Whoever moved these boulders did it recently, probably around 3 a.m., when nobody would witness the improvement. Back in my machinist days, I learned something valuable from dealing with factory politics. When someone tries to screw you, knowledge is your best weapon. Time to hit the county recorder's office. The place smells like old paper and bureaucracy, but the clerk knows her stuff. I explain my situation, and she pulls up property maps dating back to the 1920s. Here's your boat launch access road, she says, finger tracing a thin line on the 1923 survey. That's a public easement established when the lake development began, predates any HOA by 30 years. My grandfather used to say, son, always check the paperwork before you start swinging. Turns out public easements established before HOA incorporation can't be retroactively restricted. The original easement rights supersede any later community rules, something Princess Dolores clearly never bothered researching. I request certified copies of every document. Cost me $47, but Dolores was about to learn that blocking public access is a federal offense. Meanwhile, she's been busy. Door-to-door petition claiming my industrial equipment, that's my 18-foot fishing boat, violates noise ordinances. 8 signatures from HOA sheep who've never even spoken to me. Filed the complaint with code enforcement that same afternoon. The taste of her desperation was almost sweet. Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. sharp, I'm enjoying coffee when the most beautiful sound echoes across the lake. County bulldozer firing up. Yellow machine crunches down the access road, blade dropping toward those decorative boulders. Here comes the moment that changed everything. Public Works Supervisor Tommy Rodriguez hops out, hard hat gleaming in morning sun. Someone reported blocked public access. Can't have that. The satisfying scrape clang of steel blade against stone echoes across the lake as he shoves those boulders into Dolores's pristine landscaping. I walk over with a thermos. Coffee. Appreciated. Tommy wipes his forehead. 23 years on this job, seen every trick. HOAs think they can claim public roads, but county easements don't disappear just because some homeowners association prints fancy letterhead. 45 minutes later, the road's clear, and I'm posting a new sign. Public boat launch, all welcome, established, 1923. Made it myself in the garage, painted it bright yellow so everyone could see from across the lake. Princess Dolores's reaction was immediate and spectacular. She storms over at 2 p.m., clutching her phone like a weapon, face red enough to stop traffic. That sign is threatening and inflammatory. I'm calling the police about your harassment. Harassment? It's historical fact. Don't play dumb with me. Her voice rises to that pitch that makes dogs whimper. You're deliberately trying to destroy our community's peaceful atmosphere. Officer Henderson arrives 20 minutes later. Young guy, probably early 30s, takes one look at my sign and the situation. The crisp sound of his radio crackling fills the awkward silence. Ma'am, he tells Dolores, he owns the property. Historical easement means public access. Nothing illegal about posting factual information. But he's attracting the wrong element, she protests. Do you know what kind of people use public boat launches? Officer Henderson's expression shifts. I catch the subtle change. He's realizing exactly what kind of person he's dealing with. The smell of her expensive perfume seems to sour in the afternoon heat. The legal kind, ma'am. People exercising their constitutional rights to public waterways. After Dolores storms off, Henderson turns to me. Friendly advice? Document everything, pictures, recordings, witnesses. This type of harassment usually escalates. Smart kid. That evening, old Ezra shuffles over from his shack up the shore. Hermit or not, the guy's got keen eyes behind those thick glasses. Saw the show today, he says, voice like gravel. She's been pulling this crap for 20 years. Blocked my access twice in the 90s until I got lawyers involved. The smell of his pipe tobacco mixes with lake air as he tells me about previous victims. Young couple in 2018 got fined for letting their kids swim outside designated hours. Lawyer from Chicago bought the Peterson place, lasted 8 months before selling at a loss. What's her game? Control. Keep the riffraff out, property values up, kingdom perfect. He spits into the water. Problem is, you ain't like the others. You got spine. Thursday brings escalation. Anonymous fish and wildlife complaint about my commercial operation. But Princess Dolores doesn't understand. I spent 15 years dealing with factory supervisors and union politics. Her amateur intimidation just pisses me off. War was officially declared. Friday morning, I'm barely awake when my doorbell rings at 6:30 a.m. Coffee mug in hand. I open the door to find some guy in a state environmental agency jacket holding an official clipboard and wearing the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Mitchell? I'm Inspector Davis. We received a complaint about an unpermitted structure on your waterfront. Anonymous complaint. Of course. The inspector's boots echo hollow on my dock planks as he examines every bolt and board. Morning mist rises off the water, carrying that clean scent of fish and lake weeds stirring in the shallows. This dock's been here since 1987. Solid cedar construction that's weathered 35 years of storms. Here's the problem, Davis says, consulting his tablet with obvious reluctance. New environmental regulations from 2019 require updated permits for all waterfront structures. Technically, your dock needs compliance review. I gesture toward the 12 elaborate boathouses dotting the HOA shoreline. What about those? His uncomfortable pause tells me everything. Those owners received courtesy notifications last month, had time to file paperwork. Courtesy notifications. While non-HOA properties got surprise inspections and 60-day compliance deadlines. The taste of that injustice was bitter as burnt coffee. 60 days to provide documentation dating back to the Reagan administration, or face a $5,000 fine plus mandatory dock removal. The previous owner's family had no records from 1987, but here's where my factory experience kicked in. Back at the plant, when supervisors played favorites with overtime assignments, they always left paper trails. Bureaucrats are the same breed. They document their corruption without realizing it. So I marched down to the county office and filed a Freedom of Information Act request for every dock inspection conducted on Old Mill Lake in the past 2 years. The clerk's eyebrows shot up when I specified all properties, but $125 in processing fees bought me the whole story. The results arrived Wednesday, and they were beautiful. 12 HOA properties, courtesy notifications, voluntary compliance, extended deadlines, educational consultations. 3 non-HOA properties, surprise inspections, strict deadlines, mandatory enforcement actions, pattern established, evidence documented, time for the counterattack. I called Nancy Wren, environmental lawyer, and her confidence came through the phone like electricity. Selective enforcement based on association membership violates equal protection laws. Plus, her voice dropped. I see Harold Whitmore works for the county environmental department. Dolores' husband? Bingo. Harold's been feeding his wife advance warnings about regulatory changes. HOA members get insider information. Non-members get ambushed. That's conspiracy to violate civil rights. She took my case on contingency, which meant she smelled blood in the water. But Princess Dolores was preparing her nuclear option. The rumor campaign started subtle. Whispered conversations at the post office, sideways glances at the hardware store. By Tuesday, the lies had metastasized into full-blown character assassination. I had a criminal background. I was running an unlicensed charter service. My morning fishing routine had become commercial exploitation of protected wetlands. The smell of social poison hung in the grocery store air as former neighbors suddenly found their shoelaces fascinating whenever I walked by. Wednesday afternoon brought the inevitable escalation. 2 police cruisers rolling up my driveway. Officers Martinez and Thompson stepped out, and I could see Martinez trying not to laugh at whatever complaint had triggered this visit. Mr. Mitchell, Martinez said, we're investigating reports of illegal commercial activity on your property. Commercial activity? According to the complainant, you're operating an unlicensed fishing guide service. I gestured toward my humble 18-foot boat tied to the dock. That's my commercial fleet right there, officers? Walmart special? Circa 2015? Thompson examined my fishing license, boat registration, and property deed while Martinez took photos of my criminal enterprise. 1 folding chair, a cooler, and a tackle box that's seen better decades. Everything's legal here, Thompson announced. Sir, you're within your rights to fish from your own property. After they left, Martinez lingered. Off the record, we're seeing a pattern. HOA president making increasingly desperate complaints. Document everything, photos, times, witnesses. This kind of harassment usually escalates to something ugly. His warning proved prophetic faster than I expected. That evening, Ezra shuffled over with news. The vacant lot developer had received an identical anonymous complaint about unpermitted shoreline modifications. Same inspector, same 60-day deadline, same harassment playbook. She's systematically targeting every non-HOA property, Ezra muttered, pipe smoke curling in the still air, trying to force us all out. Friday's mail brought Dolores' desperate final play, a cease and desist letter claiming I was stalking and intimidating HOA members by using public roads near their properties. The legal letterhead looked expensive, but the accusations were unhinged. Princess Dolores had just escalated from petty harassment to actionable defamation. Time to show her what real legal warfare looked like. Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp, I'm greasing my boat trailer bearings when a process server appears at my gate. Young kid in a cheap suit, sweating bullets despite the cool morning air, hands me an official envelope like it contains anthrax. Garrett Mitchell, you've been served. Inside, cease and desist claiming Princess Dolores had unearthed some 1952 water rights agreement between the original HOA and the county. According to her lawyers, this ancient document granted exclusive recreational use rights to community members in good standing during summer months. Translation: I couldn't swim, fish, or boat from my own property. The legal threats were thick as motor oil. Violate this order and face immediate court injunction plus attorney fees that could fund a small war. The smell of expensive legal paper mixed with morning lake mist made my coffee taste like defeat. Nancy Wren reviewed the documents over lunch at Murphy's Diner, where the scent of fried onions and diesel fuel from passing trucks somehow made everything feel more honest than lawyer offices. Water rights can override property deeds, she admitted, cutting her meatloaf with surgical precision. A properly recorded 1952 agreement could theoretically restrict your lake access. My gut dropped like a broken anchor. But, Nancy's eyes glinted, these vintage agreements usually contain surprises. Someone back then might have been cleverer than Princess Dolores realizes. Wednesday brought the public ambush. Emergency HOA meeting. Public safety crisis, according to flyers paperclipped to every mailbox. Dolores had invited County Sheriff Thompson and reporter Sarah Kim from the Herald, planning my public execution with media coverage. The community center reeked of burnt coffee and nervous energy. 40 residents packed folding chairs, most studying their shoes when I entered. Princess Dolores held court at the head table, flanked by her HOA board and that shark lawyer who probably billed more per hour than I used to make per week. Ladies and gentlemen, Dolores began, clicking through professional slides, we face an unprecedented threat to our community's safety and investment security. Her presentation was masterful propaganda, my fishing setup photoshopped into industrial operation, complete with red arrows pointing to imaginary environmental damage. Property values allegedly dropping 15% since my arrival. Ecological disaster threatening the entire lake. Sheriff Thompson listened with cop patience, occasionally glancing my way with what looked suspiciously like amusement. The solution is clear, Dolores announced with courtroom drama. Immediate cessation of all unauthorized waterfront activities before irreversible damage occurs. The room buzzed nervously. Even some HOA sheep looked uncomfortable with the theatrical overkill. Before any decisions, Sheriff Thompson interrupted, I'd like to hear from the accused property owner. Game time. I stood slowly, pulling out my prepared timeline. The rustle of papers seemed unnaturally loud in the tense silence. Funny thing about anonymous complaints, I began, letting my voice carry to the back row. They always seem to cite the exact right regulations, almost like they're coming from someone with insider government access. I methodically laid out Harold Whitmore's conflict of interest, the selective enforcement pattern, the convenient advance warnings to HOA properties. With each revelation, Dolores's confident mask developed new cracks. Here comes the mini twist. But here's what really interests me, I continued, producing a thick folder. Mrs. Whitmore claims a 1952 water rights agreement gives her authority over my property. Problem is, I found the original incorporation documents from that same year. The room's energy shifted like a weather front moving through. Turns out my property was specifically exempted from HOA jurisdiction as a founding member exception. The water rights agreement she's citing only applies to actual HOA members. Dolores's face went white as printer paper. Furthermore, I pressed, That exemption grants my property irrevocable access to all community amenities and infrastructure, including the boat launch, fishing pier, and beach area she's been illegally restricting. The reporter's pen moved like a jackhammer as she scribbled notes. Princess Dolores exploded. This is harassment, intimidation. We will not be bullied by troublemakers who don't understand community standards. What standards? Sheriff Thompson asked quietly. The room went dead silent. Even the rattling air conditioner seemed to pause. Appropriate standards? Dolores shrieked, completely unhinged now. For people who belong, people who understand property values and community investment and what kind of people belong, Mrs. Whitmore? I asked, voice calm as still water. The right kind, the words exploded out before she could stop them. Not some factory worker who thinks he can just buy his way into our community and destroy everything we've built. There it was. The truth, spoken in front of 40 witnesses, a sheriff, and a reporter. After the meeting, retired lawyer Peterson approached me in the parking lot, the smell of cooling asphalt mixed with evening lake air as he shook my hand. Son, you just won the war, but be careful. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. Princess Dolores had publicly revealed her true nature, and I'd documented every word. That evening, old Ezra shuffled over to my place carrying a dusty cardboard box that looked older than both of us combined. His weathered hands shook slightly as he set it on my kitchen table, and the smell hit me immediately. Decades of attic storage, mothballs, old paper, and the musty scent of forgotten secrets. Figured it was time, he said, opening the box with reverent care. My father kept everything, every document, every meeting minute, every handshake deal from when this lake development started. Inside were manila folders thick with documents, their edges yellow and brittle. Ezra pulled out a leather-bound ledger that looked like it belonged in a courthouse vault. Your property wasn't just excluded from the HOA, he said, finger-tracing faded ink entries. It was the crown jewel, the keystone of the whole development. He spread out the original 1952 incorporation documents, and I felt that familiar tingle Sarah used to get when she found a perfect antique at estate sales. The founding charter listed 3 primary stakeholders: Ezra's father, Harold Whitmore Sr., Dolores' father-in-law, and the original owner of my property, wealthy industrialist Morrison, who'd bankrolled 60% of the entire lake development. Morrison was nobody's fool, Ezra continued. He demanded complete autonomy as the price for his investment. New HOAs could turn into tiny dictatorships run by petty tyrants. The exemption clause was ironclad. Morrison property shall maintain perpetual independence from association rules, regulations, and restrictions, with irrevocable access to all community amenities and infrastructure. But here's where my pulse started racing like a NASCAR engine. See this section? Ezra pointed to a paragraph that made my hands tremble. Morrison didn't just get exemption rights, he got superior rights. His property takes precedence over HOA decisions regarding lake access, environmental policies, community planning, everything. The room felt charged with electricity, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. There's more. Ezra's eyes gleamed with decades of suppressed satisfaction. The HOA can't make any major decisions about lake management, access roads, or environmental policies without written consent from the Morrison property owner. I set down my coffee with hands that weren't quite steady. You're saying I have veto power over Princess Dolores? Son, you don't just have veto power. According to this charter, you have override authority. The HOA restricts something and you disagree, your property rights supersede theirs. Period. He pulled out the 1952 property map, and my jaw hit the floor. The boat launch road, fishing pier, community beach, even the main access drive, all of it ran through easements originally granted by Morrison's property. Every road they use, every amenity they enjoy, every inch of lake access, it all depends on easements that belong to your property, Ezra said with quiet satisfaction. Princess Dolores has been operating on completely fraudulent authority for decades. The implications crashed over me like a rogue wave. All those HOA members paying dues and following Dolores' rules, all those fines and restrictions and threats, all illegal. She'd been violating superior property rights for 30 years. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Ezra's weathered face cracked into a predatory smile. Because I wanted to watch her hang herself first. Dolores has been a tyrant since day one, bullying anyone who wouldn't kiss her ring. But bullies only understand superior force. I thought about Sarah, how she'd always stood up to workplace bullies even when it cost her promotions. She'd be proud of what was coming next. Son, Ezra said, closing the ledger with finality, you don't just own a lake house. You own the keys to the entire kingdom. Every HOA member, every fancy mansion, every boat in the water, they're all there by permission of your property's easement rights. I stared at those documents, feeling the weight of absolute power mixed with the responsibility Sarah had always taught me. Use strength to protect others, not just yourself. Princess Dolores thought she'd been fighting some nobody factory worker. Tomorrow, she'd discover she'd been illegally restricting the most powerful property owner on the entire lake. Thursday morning, I called an emergency war council. Nancy Wren arrived at my kitchen table with environmental specialist Marcus Webb and civil rights attorney Julia Santos, 3 legal predators who smelled Princess Dolores's blood in the water. The aroma of fresh coffee mixed with leather briefcase scents as I spread Ezra's documents across the table. Nancy's eyes lit up like Christmas morning reading the Morrison property charter, and Marcus let out a whistle that could summon every dog in the county. This isn't just property defense anymore, Nancy said, her voice electric with excitement. We're exposing 30 years of fraudulent authority and systematic civil rights violations. Julia Santos clicked her pen rapidly, already calculating damages. Conspiracy to violate civil rights, abuse of government connections, environmental fraud. Dolores built a criminal empire disguised as community management. Our 3-pronged attack strategy took shape like military precision. Environmental violations for selective enforcement, civil rights lawsuit for discrimination patterns, and property rights action to establish my superior legal authority over the entire lake community. Here's the nuclear option, Marcus explained, spreading county environmental maps across my table. Every decision the HOA made for 30 years is legally void without Morrison property consent. That's hundreds of violations, each carrying $1,000, $5,000 penalties. Back in my machinist days, I learned that proper documentation beats good intentions every time. So I downloaded Timestamp Camera Pro, an app that burns date, time, GPS coordinates, and weather conditions directly into photo metadata. Courts love this stuff because it's nearly impossible to fake. The technical trick most people miss: smartphone videos automatically embed metadata, but regular photos can be altered. Timestamp apps create forensically sound evidence that lawyers can actually use in court. Cost $2.99. Value in harassment cases: priceless. Friday evening brought our secret resistance meeting at Ezra's cabin. The place reeked of pipe tobacco and decades of accumulated lake stories. Perfect atmosphere for plotting against tyranny. 5 harassment victims gathered around his scratched kitchen table like underground revolutionaries. Margaret Foster, 73, had been fined $500 for unauthorized bird feeders that supposedly attracted undesirable wildlife. The irony of a bird-loving grandmother being labeled an environmental threat wasn't lost on anyone. Tom and Lisa Wren, young couple with 2 kids, faced constant harassment over playground equipment being inconsistent with community aesthetics. Dolores had literally measured their swing set with a tape measure, claiming 6-inch setback violations. "She's completely unhinged," Lisa whispered, glancing nervously at windows, like Dolores might be lurking outside. Last week she counted the number of soccer balls in our yard, claiming excessive recreational equipment storage. The most chilling case belonged to Sam Rodriguez, the fishing guide who'd supported my public access fight. Dolores had filed complaints with his business license agency, State Tourism Board, and Fish Commission. Systematic destruction of a man's livelihood for supporting constitutional rights. "I'm losing clients because of her lies," Sam said, his weathered hands shaking with suppressed rage. 20 years building this business, and she's trying to destroy it with phone calls. That's when I realized we weren't just fighting property disputes. We were liberating a community from a sociopathic dictator. Saturday morning brought our most valuable ally from the most unexpected source. Harold Whitmore appeared at my door looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Dolores' husband carried the haunted expression of someone watching their spouse disappear into madness, and the acrid smell of stress sweat clung to his wrinkled clothes like desperation. "She's planning a frame-up," he said without preamble, voice breaking with shame and terror. "False police report about drugs in your cabin. She wants to plant evidence during a welfare check and destroy your reputation permanently." My coffee went cold instantly. Princess Dolores was escalating from harassment to felony criminal conspiracy. "I can't watch her commit crimes and destroy our marriage," Harold continued, pulling out a digital recorder with trembling hands. "I've been documenting her conversations. She's completely lost touch with reality." The device contained hours of Dolores planning increasingly unhinged revenge schemes, enough criminal conspiracy evidence to send her to federal prison. Harold was risking everything to prevent his wife from self-destructing and taking innocent people with her. Sunday's technical preparations focused on evidence protection. I installed wireless security cameras using a simple principle. Position everything just inside your property lines. Cameras recording beyond your boundaries create legal problems that can invalidate evidence in court. My setup used basic Amazon equipment: 4 motion-activated cameras with night vision, automatic cloud backup, and smartphone alerts. Total cost, $380. The key insight: cheap equipment that works legally beats expensive gear positioned illegally. Reporter Sarah Kim was building her own ammunition. Her investigation into statewide HOA corruption had uncovered similar abuse patterns in 12 counties, and national news outlets were showing interest. This story represents something bigger, Sarah explained over coffee at Murphy's, her notebook thick with victim contacts. Millions of Americans live under HOA rule, and most abuse goes unreported because victims feel powerless. By Sunday evening, our coalition was locked and loaded. Evidence compiled, legal strategy finalized, media attention secured, and Dolores' own husband providing insider intelligence about her criminal plans. Princess Dolores thought she was crushing isolated victims. She was about to discover she'd awakened a coordinated resistance movement with superior legal authority and documented proof of decades of crimes. Monday morning, 5:47 a.m., I wake up to my boat engine coughing like it's dying of lung cancer. The sound that should be a smooth purr comes out as a grinding wheeze that makes my teeth ache. I pop the cowling and immediately smell something wrong. Not gas and oil, but something sickeningly sweet. Sugar in the gas tank. Classic vandalism, straight out of teenage revenge fantasies. My security cameras caught 2 masked figures working by flashlight around 2 a.m., but they positioned themselves perfectly to avoid facial identification. Professional job. Which meant Princess Dolores was either getting smarter or hiring help. While I'm dealing with $800 in engine repairs, she escalates to psychological warfare. Tuesday brings a county health inspector to my door, clipboard in hand and the expression of someone who'd rather be investigating actual crimes. Mr. Mitchell, reports of sewage leak threatening lake water quality, complete fabrication, but county regulations require immediate investigation of any reported sewage violation. For 3 days, my peaceful lakefront sounds like a construction site. The drilling rig testing soil samples produces constant metallic grinding that echoes across the water like industrial torture. The smell of diesel fuel and disturbed earth hangs thick enough to taste while investigators in hazmat suits trample my landscaping. Results: no violations, perfect septic function, complaint obviously fraudulent. But the harassment worked. $500 in lawn repair, 3 days of disrupted peace, and the spectacle of hazmat teams treating my property like Chernobyl. Every neighbor witnessed the investigation, and property contamination rumors started spreading. Wednesday brought the desperate bribery attempt. HOA board member Kenneth Morrison approached my dock with an envelope thick enough to choke a horse, sweat beading despite the cool morning air. Garrett, the board wants to make things right. Inside, cashier's check for $450,000. $110,000 profit, quick closing, all legal fees covered. The poison pill: sign an agreement never to challenge HOA authority anywhere in the county. I handed the check back. Not interested. Kenneth's mask slipped. You're making a serious mistake. This community has ways of dealing with uncooperative people. Is that a threat? Friendly advice. His tone suggested otherwise. Thursday escalated to criminal stalking. I discovered a GPS tracking device under my truck's bumper. Cigarette pack-sized black box. Warm to the touch. Smelling of new electronics. Private vehicle tracking without consent is illegal stalking, but I left it in place. Better to document surveillance than eliminate evidence. The character assassination campaign launched simultaneously. Anonymous Facebook accounts flooded neighborhood groups with fabricated stories about my criminal background, sex offender registration, domestic violence arrests, illegal drug operations from my lakefront property. The digital lynch mob was brutally effective. Former neighbors crossed streets to avoid me, mothers pulled children away at grocery stores, hardware store clerks treated me like I might explode without warning. Friday brought Princess Dolores' nuclear option. Harold called at 11 p.m., voice shaking with panic. She's completely lost it. Called the state attorney general claiming you're a domestic terrorist threatening government officials. The accusation was beyond absurd. My boat launch sign constituted incitement to violence, and my community meeting appearance represented threatening behavior toward elected officials. State investigators laughed it off, Harold continued. But the complaint creates a permanent record. Your name's now connected to terrorism accusations in government databases. Saturday morning, coalition members started cracking under pressure. Margaret Foster accepted her fine rather than fight. I'm 73. I can't handle this stress. Tom and Lisa Wren considered moving out of state. Our kids are getting bullied because of rumors about you. Other parents won't let their children play with ours. Here comes the mini twist that changed everything. But while Dolores was busy destroying my reputation, I was quietly building something she never saw coming. Every harassment attempt, every false complaint, every criminal act was being methodically documented in a federal lawsuit Nancy Wren had been secretly preparing. Sunday afternoon, I called an emergency coalition meeting at my property. The smell of barbecue smoke from my grill mixed with lake air as I revealed our counter-strategy. Every attack has been recorded, time-stamped, and correlated with Harold's insider intelligence, I announced to the wavering group. GPS tracking, false police reports, environmental fraud, conspiracy to violate civil rights. We have enough evidence to send her to federal prison. Margaret's eyes widened. Federal prison? Civil rights violations become federal crimes when they involve government conspiracy, I explained. Harold's recordings prove she coordinated with her husband's environmental department connections. Tom leaned forward. What's the plan? I smiled, feeling Sarah's fighting spirit flowing through me. Tomorrow morning, we file a federal lawsuit that exposes 30 years of criminal conspiracy. But first, we're going to give Princess Dolores one final chance to hang herself publicly. The hunter had just become the hunted, and Dolores had no idea what was coming. Monday morning, 4:43 a.m., I wake to the crunch of tires on gravel and the distinctive crackle of police radios. Red and blue lights paint my bedroom walls like a disco from hell as I stumble to the window and count 3 cruisers in my driveway. The setup was textbook perfect. Anonymous tip about suspicious packages delivered to this address, Officer Martinez explains when I answer the door in my bathrobe, his expression apologetic but professional. Caller claimed drug activity, possible distribution operation. I can smell the frost-covered leaves crunching under their boots as they conduct a welfare check of my property. What they find in my garbage can, strategically placed there during collection day, are empty drug baggies with white residue that could be anything from powdered sugar to baby formula. Obviously planted, Martinez mutters under his breath, but procedure requires documentation. They photograph everything, bag the evidence, and file the report that Princess Dolores was counting on to destroy my reputation permanently. But here's what she didn't know. Harold had warned me 3 days earlier, and my security cameras captured everything. The 2:17 a.m. footage shows a figure in dark clothing depositing something in my garbage bin, face obscured but body language unmistakably female. Tuesday brings the social media nuclear bomb. Local Facebook groups explode with posts about the drug raid at my property. The photos of police cars in my driveway get shared hundreds of times with captions like, "Told you so" and "Drug dealer exposed." The smell of digital blood in the water attracts every gossip shark in the county. Princess Dolores personally comments on every post, adding fuel with phrases like "protecting our children" and "dangerous criminal element." Her performance as concerned community leader would win awards if Oscar had a category for sociopathic manipulation. Wednesday escalates to legal intimidation warfare. A process server delivers papers for a restraining order. Princess Dolores claiming reasonable fear of physical violence based on my threatening behavior during grocery store encounters. Her sworn affidavit describes me as an unstable individual with violent tendencies who made aggressive gestures while she was shopping. Complete fiction, but restraining order hearings operate on he said, she said testimony. Thursday morning brings the courtroom performance of her lifetime. Judge Patricia Hawkins listens to Dolores's tearful testimony about living in fear, unable to enjoy her own community because of my menacing presence and intimidating behavior. The courtroom smells like old wood and justice deferred as she describes fictional threats that sound convincing to anyone who hasn't witnessed her actual behavior. This man has systematically harassed our peaceful community, she declares, dabbing her eyes with tissues like a seasoned actress. We're simple homeowners trying to protect our families from someone who clearly has serious anger management issues. My turn. I calmly present the security footage, Harold's recordings, and a timeline of harassment that reads like a criminal conspiracy manual. The sound of shuffling papers fills the courtroom silence as Judge Hawkins reviews the evidence. Mrs. Whitmore, Judge Hawkins says finally, This evidence suggests the harassment has been flowing in the opposite direction. I'm denying your restraining order request and issuing a mutual no-contact order. Both parties stay away from each other. But the real bombshell comes next. Furthermore, based on evidence of potentially false allegations, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of filing false police reports. Dolores' face goes white as courthouse marble. Thursday afternoon brings her most desperate gambit. My property damage escalates from vandalism to potential homicide. Someone loosens the safety railings on my dock and removes bolts from the support structure. Sabotage designed to cause serious injury or drowning when the dock collapses under weight. The smell of freshly disturbed wood and metal shavings tells the story of recent tampering. If I hadn't been obsessively checking my property after the previous attacks, someone could have died. My security cameras capture two figures working by flashlight, but they're getting smarter about avoiding identification. Still, the footage proves premeditation and escalation to potentially deadly force. Friday brings the insurance fraud attempt. Princess Dolores files a claim against her homeowner's policy for dock damage caused by excessive boat wake from my property. She's claiming thousands in repairs for damage that was actually caused by her own sabotage attempts. The insurance investigator who contacts me sounds skeptical from the first sentence. Mrs. Whitmore claims your boat created wake damage, but her dock is 400 yards from your property. Physics doesn't support that scenario. I provide my security footage showing the actual vandalism timeline, and the investigator's tone shifts to professional interest. Insurance companies hate fraud attempts more than serial killers hate witnesses. Saturday evening brings the final coalition meeting before our planned counterattack. The smell of Ezra's pipe tobacco mixes with evening lake air as we finalize tomorrow's strategy. Harold arrives looking like a man attending his own execution, carrying one final recording that makes my blood run cold. "She's planning to burn down your cabin," he says without preamble. "Make it look like an electrical fire, collect insurance money, and frame you for arson when they find accelerant residue." Princess Dolores had escalated from harassment to attempted murder. Sunday morning, I call Nancy Wren with the final piece of evidence. File everything tomorrow. Federal civil rights violations, criminal conspiracy, attempted arson, insurance fraud, the whole package. "With Harold's recordings and your security footage, we have enough evidence to put her away for decades," Nancy replies. "Time to end this war." Tomorrow, Princess Dolores would discover that her reign of terror was about to become a federal case study in HOA abuse. Monday morning, 7 a.m. sharp, I tape a $47 certified notice to Princess Dolores' front gate. The paper flutters in the morning breeze like a white flag of surrender, except this time she's the one surrendering. The notice is simple, direct, and absolutely devastating. Effective immediately, all HOA vehicle access to lakefront properties via Morrison property easement roads is hereby revoked due to ongoing violations of superior property rights. Alternative access arrangements must be established within 72 hours. By 7:15 a.m., Dolores is standing in her driveway screaming loud enough to wake 3 counties. The sound of her voice cracking under pure rage echoes across the lake like a wounded animal, and I can smell the expensive coffee burning in her kitchen from 200 yards away. Every HOA property depends on the access road that runs through my easement. Without it, their multimillion-dollar lakefront mansions become landlocked islands. Their boats become lawn ornaments. Their docks become expensive fishing piers accessible only by swimming. By 8 a.m., my phone starts ringing like a casino slot machine hitting jackpot. "Garrett, this is Kenneth Morrison. We need to talk immediately. There's been a misunderstanding." Click. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Attorney Richardson representing the HOA board. My clients are prepared to negotiate." Click. "Sir, this is absolutely unreasonable. You can't just block access to..." Click. The emergency HOA meeting gets called for 7 p.m. at the community center, with every property owner required to attend. The flyers claim critical infrastructure emergency threatening all property values, which is actually accurate for once. By 6:45 p.m., the community center parking lot looks like a luxury car convention. BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, and Audi vehicles clustered together like expensive cattle seeking safety in numbers. The air buzzes with nervous energy and the scent of panic sweat mixing with designer cologne. Inside, the room holds 60-plus residents, County Sheriff Thompson, State Environmental Inspector, 2 lawyers, and reporter Sarah Kim with her photographer. The smell of burnt coffee and desperation hangs thick enough to slice with a knife. Princess Dolores sits at the head table looking like Napoleon at Waterloo, defiant, cornered, and completely out of options. Her expensive attorney whispers urgently in her ear while she stares daggers at me with enough hatred to melt steel. "Ladies and gentlemen," she begins, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury, "we face an unprecedented attack on our community by an individual who has systematically undermined our property values, violated our environmental protections, and threatened our way of life." Her PowerPoint presentation is professional propaganda, charts showing alleged property value impacts, environmental damage claims, and carefully edited photos making my modest fishing setup look like industrial pollution. "This individual has used legal technicalities to hold our entire community hostage," she continues, building to her crescendo. "We must take immediate action to protect our investments and our families from this continuing threat." The room murmurs nervously. Several residents nod along, still believing her performance despite mounting evidence of her insanity. Sheriff Thompson stands when she finishes. "Before any votes, I need to address some recent developments. Mrs. Whitmore, you're under investigation for filing false police reports, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to violate civil rights." The room goes dead silent. Even the ancient air conditioning unit seems to hold its breath. "Furthermore," Thompson continues, "based on evidence including recorded conversations and security footage, charges are being filed for criminal harassment, property damage, and attempted arson." Dolores explodes like a defective firework. "This is conspiracy, harassment. These people are trying to destroy me because I've protected this community for 30 years. "Protected from what, Mrs. Whitmore?" I ask, standing slowly. Every eye in the room focuses on me like laser beams. "Protected from working people who fish from their own docks? Protected from families whose children play in their own yards? Protected from anyone who doesn't bow down to your personal authority?" I pull out the Morrison property charter and hold it up for everyone to see. "This document gives my property superior rights over every decision this HOA has made for 30 years. Every fine, every restriction, every threat has been illegal. You've been operating under completely fraudulent authority." The room erupts in shocked murmurs. Lawyers lean forward, residents turn to each other with confused whispers, and Dolores's face cycles through rage, panic, and desperation like a broken traffic light. "But here's what really matters," I continue, my voice carrying to the back row. "I'm not using these rights to hurt anyone. I'm creating the Lake Community Restoration Fund to ensure everyone has access to clean water, safe boat launches, and family-friendly recreation." The murmurs shift from panic to interest. "Free public access to fishing pier and beach area, environmental protection fund for water quality, annual community festival open to all residents regardless of HOA membership." Reporter Sarah Kim's pen moves like lightning, capturing every word. "Mrs. Whitmore spent 30 years building walls between neighbors. Time to tear them down and build something better. Princess Dolores's reign of terror was officially over." The room erupts in applause that drowns out her final, desperate screams of protest. 6 months later, I'm sitting on my dock watching the sunrise paint Old Mill Lake gold and orange, the smell of pine needles and fresh coffee mixing with Sarah's favorite morning memories. The water laps peacefully against the new public fishing pier built with funds from the HOA's insurance settlement after Princess Dolores's spectacular legal meltdown. The immediate aftermath was swift and satisfying. Dolores pled no contest to harassment charges, received 2 years probation, and faced personal bankruptcy when her insurance company refused to cover legal defense for criminal conspiracy. The federal civil rights lawsuit resulted in a $2.3 million settlement that funded everything from environmental restoration to a new community center. Harold Whitmore divorced her quietly and moved to Florida, leaving behind a 20-page letter apologizing to every harassment victim. Last I heard, Dolores was living in a studio apartment across the county, working at a call center, and forbidden from contacting anyone connected to Old Mill Lake. The new HOA leadership came from the moderate faction led by retired teacher Patricia Wren, Tom and Lisa's mother-in-law, who'd watched the harassment with growing disgust. Their first official act was adopting a universal community access policy, ensuring equal treatment regardless of property size, income level, or association membership. "Everyone deserves to enjoy the lake they live near," Patricia announced at the reorganization meeting. "Community means including everyone, not excluding people we don't like." The environmental restoration project became our crown jewel. Using my superior property rights, we partnered with the State Conservation Department to create protected wetland areas, fish spawning grounds, and water quality monitoring systems. The lake now hosts environmental education programs for 3 local school districts. The Lake Community Restoration Fund expanded beyond anyone's expectations. Initial funding of $400,000 from the legal settlement grew to over $850,000 through private donations and grants from environmental organizations who'd heard about our community healing story. Our annual Lake Day Festival draws families from 5 counties. This year's event featured live music, food trucks, fishing competitions, and environmental education booths. The smell of barbecue smoke mixing with lake air while children's laughter echoed across the water, exactly what Sarah would have loved. Margaret Foster got her bird feeders back and expanded to include 3 elaborate feeding stations that attract species from across the region. Tom and Lisa's kids now host other families for swimming and playground activities without fear of HOA harassment. Sam Rodriguez's fishing guide business tripled after the publicity, and he donated $50,000 to establish the Equal Access Scholarship for low-income families wanting lake recreation programs. The most satisfying transformation involved Ezra. The former hermit became our unofficial community historian, documenting lake stories and hosting monthly Tales from the Shore gatherings where longtime residents share memories and newcomers learn about our area's heritage. 30 years of fear and division gone in 6 months, Ezra mused during last week's sunset fishing session, pipe smoke curling in the still air. Sometimes it just takes one person willing to fight back, but the real victory was personal healing. Sarah's memory guided every decision, her belief that communities should lift each other up instead of tearing each other down, her conviction that standing up to bullies protects everyone, not just yourself. I kept my promise to her. The empty apartment became a lakefront home filled with friends, community activities, and the kind of positive energy she'd always radiated. Sunday mornings bring coffee with neighbors, afternoon fishing with kids whose parents now trust the dangerous criminal with their children, and evening barbecues where former enemies have become genuine friends. Reporter Sarah Kim's series on HOA abuse became a national story, inspiring legislative changes in 12 states and helping hundreds of harassment victims fight back against corrupt associations. Her investigation won state journalism awards and led to her promotion to investigative editor. The legal precedent our case established helps communities nationwide. Nancy Wren estimates our documentation and strategies have been used in over 200 similar cases, with a 90% success rate against abusive HOAs. But the most important lesson was simple. Bullies only understand superior force, whether legal, social, or moral. Princess Dolores thought she could crush some factory worker who didn't know his place. Instead, she discovered that working people who've survived union politics and corporate layoffs don't intimidate easily. Share your HOA nightmare story in the comments below. We read every one, and the worst cases might become our next investigation. Hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest justice stories. Because somewhere out there, another Princess Dolores is bullying someone who needs to know they're not alone. The lake is peaceful again, and Sarah would be proud.